In Chapter 1, Harry, Dresden, and Michael rush through Chicago traffic toward Cook County Hospital, chasing a dangerous ghost. Driving Harry's unreliable Beetle, they race against sunset as the ghost becomes active after dark. Michael, a Knight of the Cross, urges Harry to reflect on his relationship with Susan, pressing him about love and commitment. Harry resists, focused on the supernatural threat. They reach the hospital just as police close in. Michael dons his white cloak and sword, invoking divine protection, while Harry grabs his staff, blasting rod, and magic pouch. The two storm inside, drawing startled stares as they head for the nursery, the ghost's target. Despite their banter and personal differences, they share urgency and resolve, united in their mission to stop the malevolent spirit. The chapter sets up their partnership and hints at a wider supernatural disturbance affecting Chicago's ghost population. In Chapter 2, Harry and Michael take the stairs to the hospital nursery, avoiding elevators due to Harry's magic disrupting technology. On the dark, silent fourth floor, they find the nursery abandoned except for sleeping nurses. Inside, the ghost of Agatha Hagglethorne sings a deadly lullaby, trying to kill the infants. Harry confronts her, using her name and forcing a reaction so he can trap her with ghost dust. Michael blocks Agatha's spectral hatchet with his holy sword Amarachius, while Harry binds her briefly with the dust. Agatha tears herself free and vanishes, but her influence lingers. Babies stop breathing again as her lullaby echoes from the Never Never. Harry hesitates to follow her into the Never Never, fearing his fairy godmother, but Michael's faith in him pushes him forward. With no choice, Harry tears open a portal to pursue Agatha on her home ground, risking everything to save the children. In Chapter 3, Harry returns to his office for a routine day after the intense ghost hunt. He reviews mail, gets paid for a previous case, and plans to split earnings with Michael. Susan Rodriguez, a reporter and Harry's girlfriend, calls him for a ghost story exclusive. Harry shares details about a recent ghost hunt and Susan flirts, hinting at their date that night. Despite ongoing ghost disturbances in Chicago, Harry and Michael haven't yet discovered the cause. Harry spends his workday on small jobs, refusing unethical requests. As he locks up, a young woman approaches, claiming she needs his help. When she touches him, Harry senses raw magical energy, realizing she's a practitioner. The girl, frightened, begs for his protection, warning she might not survive the night without him. This unexpected plea for help sets the stage for Harry's next conflict, pulling him deeper into the growing supernatural unrest. In Chapter 4, Harry brings the girl back into his office and questions her. She introduces herself as Lydia and tries seducing him, but Harry refuses and demands answers. Lydia claims she's a practitioner with Cassandra's tears, a prophetic condition, and fears a hostile spirit is after her. Though suspicious of a con, Harry senses her fear is genuine. After she describes visions of fire, war, and death, all centered on Harry. He reluctantly gives her his personal protective talisman and sends her to Father Forthill at St. Mary of the Angels for safety. After Lydia leaves, Harry receives a chilling phone call from an unknown voice promising a future encounter. Bob the Skull then contacts Harry through the enchanted radio, warning him of Agatha Hagglethorne's ghost targeting Cook County Hospital. As Harry rushes out, Michael arrives unexpectedly, joining him for the mission, setting the stage for their confrontation with the dangerous spirit. In Chapter 5, Harry and Michael enter the Never Never to confront Agatha Hagglethorne's ghost in her own domain, a twisted, half-remembered version of old Chicago. The ghost attacks immediately, overpowering Harry's shield and nearly killing him. Michael and Harry fight back, with Michael wounding the ghost with Amarachius and Harry landing a decisive blow using ghost dust. As Agatha's ghost burns away, they discover barbed wire embedded in her ghostly form, evidence someone tortured her spirit into madness. This confirms the recent ghost attacks are deliberate, orchestrated by a hidden enemy. As they retreat, the Never Never around them begins to collapse in flames. Just before they can escape, they're confronted by Harry's fairy godmother, Leah, accompanied by shadowy hellhounds blocking their path to the mortal world. The chapter ends with Harry stepping forward to face Leah, knowing her presence spells serious danger. This confrontation hints at deeper manipulations behind the recent supernatural chaos. In Chapter 6, Harry and Michael face Harry's fairy godmother Leah in the burning Never Never. Leah asserts her claim over Harry based on a past bargain. Using her magic, she nearly enthralls Harry, but he tricks her by pretending to surrender and dumps ghost dust on her, exploiting Fairy's vulnerability to iron. As they try to escape, hellhounds attack. Michael and Harry fight them off while fleeing toward the